Hello and welcome to Friday Live. I am your host, Strata lawyer Amanda Farmer. It is Friday. Once again, we are going out live to the Your Strata Property Facebook page. We're heading out to what I think is going to be a bigger than usual audience on LinkedIn today. And we are also going out to YouTube. Welcome to our wrap up of the week in Strata. And what a week it has been. Big week. Anybody else behind on their work because of the distractions in the media and in the social media and in the inbox this week? I definitely sympathize with you. A little bit of catching up that might need to happen over this weekend for a few of us who are working in Strata. Lots of discussion, lots of comments, lots of opinion. Yes, we are going to bravely wade into all of that. If you are coming in live, and we have lots of you already here live, feel free to say hello, whether you're on LinkedIn, you're on Facebook, you're on YouTube. I can see those comments come through. I will do a brief call out, and I do like to acknowledge you. Sean M is here saying hi. Hey, Jeff. Sean saying you look very stern in your new PR photo. Look, some situations call for stern. Some situations are a little more serious than others. We can't always be all smiles, Sean. Gordon saying, hi, Amanda, please be kind to all us honest strata managers out here. Absolutely, Gordon. Ronnie saying, afternoon. Hey, Jill. Hey, Michael. Maureen. Yes, ma'am, says Sean. Good. That's you're going to get a bit of headmistress here today. Don't worry about that. If you are new to our Friday live stream, let me know that it's your first time. Say hi. You are absolutely welcome here for perhaps obvious reasons. We've had a lot of new followers here on the page wanting to find out what's going on, why we're all in the news all of a sudden. Feel free to say hi. And I want to say it did not go unnoticed by many that yesterday, the 12th of September, was National Are You OK Day. And I do hope that everyone, strata managers, strata owners, strata committee members, strata service providers, insurers, brokers, I do hope that everybody is okay at the end of the day. We do have a resource here, a link from the Are You OK website in case you or anyone you know is not okay. There are some suggested actions and contacts for you to access there. So we'll pop that into the links here. I have Rochelle and Mina helping me out in the background here today. Special hello to them. If you know someone else who needs to hear this conversation, this strata conversation here today, you can hit that share button on Facebook. You can hit that on LinkedIn. You can give us a thumbs up. You can give us a heart or a like. That helps us reach more people who do need to know and do need to be part of this conversation. More hellos coming in thick and fast here. Sean B is here. David, how are you doing? Layla, lovely to see you. Henry, I see your comment there. I've had that one before. Paul is saying, first time, welcome, Paul. Looking forward to this topic. Great to have you here. Dewey, is it? Good afternoon. Keen to find out more. Kristen is joining us from LinkedIn. Hi there, Amanda. Looking forward to today's session after a tough week for lots of people working in Strata. Joanne saying it's her first time. You are more than welcome. Joanne, thank you. Hey, Jan. Hey, Margaret. Happy Friday to you. Hi, Josephine. Sean saying, anyone who is working in Strata who wants honest chats about challenges of the role, please feel free to reach out to me by direct message. Love that, Sean. And that is what I love about our space here. We have so many experienced, skilled strata professionals who are willing to lend a hand, whatever form that might take. Lois is saying it's been a worrying week. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Lois. What are we covering today? Well, yes, I am going to give a summary of this week's reporting. I'm going to have a look at what our industry stakeholders have been saying this week. And I am going to let you know what I think because you asked me to. It is very tempting to read, to watch, to relay, to share, and not to get too involved. But I acknowledge this privileged position of being behind the microphone, being behind or in front of the camera, the very large audience that gathers here regularly, not only to hear what I have to say as a strata lawyer, but to share with each other as you do. I do feel a responsibility to share what I think, and I will do that. Thank you for asking. I also have a resource for you. I have put together 20 questions that I'm suggesting you might want to think about asking your strata manager, or a strata manager your building is thinking of engaging in the future. You will get free access to that resource. Just make sure that you stick around for this chat, and I will be letting you know how you can get your hands on that. I'm also going to share the resource with you here on the screen, and I'm going to walk you through each of those 20 questions, sharing why I have included it in the list. Until then, on the screen, it's going to be me talking. So if you prefer to listen rather than to watch, you are more than welcome to tune in via audio only. You won't be missing out on anything. This is an incredibly important discussion that we're going to have. I do want to hear your comments, your opinions, your experience. You will all have different views and different experiences. We gather here as strata owners, we gather here as strata managers, as other service providers to the strata sector. We can only do this in this way on a public, open, accessible, live platform if you all agree to play by the rules. The rules include no naming and shaming in the comments section. If you do not have something nice to say about a person or a company, do not name them on this platform. If you do, my team of moderators will hide that message, will block and ban you from this page. We have a zero tolerance policy for defamation. If you have an experience to share and you feel that you do need to reveal some identifying details, or you have to name names, you can do that in a private message. That can be a message to me here on the page, an email to me. It can be an email to the ABC, to the SCA. As you'll hear shortly, you have the opportunity to do a public post on social media is not the place. You will only get yourself and potentially me into trouble. Just don't do it. My team has been working hard this week to make sure that we do enforce our standards and our guidelines here on this page and on our website. Some followers, some posters have had their comments deleted. They have received private messages from my team explaining why that's happened. I get it. You feel strongly, but the law still applies to you as it does to me. I have even reached out this week where I have seen inappropriate and potentially unlawful content posted by others on LinkedIn, which is obviously not a platform that I control, but I do feel a sense of duty to provide some level of guidance during a time of great stress for many people. And I do encourage my lawyer friends and colleagues to consider doing the same if they see something posted on a public platform that is out of line. It is always possible to contact someone with a private message and encourage them to edit or to remove their post at risk of exposing themselves to legal action. I think as lawyers, we owe at least that to the industry that has given us so much. So we are clear on the ground rules, then we can move on ahead. More of you who have come in to say hello here. Philip, I can see you there. How you doing? Sean O is here. I think we've got the Sean trifecta, which is awesome. David, hi. Patty, looking forward to listening to the session. Hey, Luke. Hey, Wendy. Jeff. Sean B, I might have said hello to you earlier. Elizabeth, good to see you. Bill and Ben. Megan, happy Friday. That's moving a bit fast for me to keep up with now. George, how you doing? Mike, excellent. All right. So what's been going on? What's been going on for you guys this week? Unless you have been blissfully living under a rock since Monday night, you will know that ABC's Four Corners finally went to air with the Strata story that many of us have known for some months now. It has been working on. In a 45-minute segment titled The Strata Trap, Linton Besser and his team of ABC reporters revealed some interesting facts about our strata industry. This video has been accompanied by numerous ABC articles throughout the week, some more detailed than others. We're not going to link to all of those. You can do a Google. ABC Strata is generally what I Google to find the latest ABC news story. What we do have is the link to the Four Corners video for you, and we'll pop that into the comments here. If you haven't seen it, you can go and check it out. Four Corners started its investigation into the strata industry earlier this year, or more broadly, the ABC investigation into the strata industry, after revelations that one of our most high-profile strata management companies, Net Strata, had been charging what the ABC said is millions of dollars in opaque, often hidden insurance fees and taking kickbacks from contractors. After that story, the ABC asked strata owners and managers to reach out to them to let them know just how widespread those practices were. And apparently, the ABC received more than 2,000 responses. Further findings from the ABC investigation were featured on Monday night's Four Corners and in other ABC News articles this week. In the reporting, the focus has been on strata managers allegedly overcharging or charging questionable fees, including when they're recovering or assisting their clients to recover unpaid or outstanding levies, and also when it comes to administering the New South Wales Strata Hub. Strata management companies, including some of the country's largest firms, receiving referral fees or kickbacks from other strata service providers, including engineers, energy providers, trades, cozy relationships that apparently exist between strata managers and developers, making defects, rectification difficult, if not impossible, for owners in new buildings. The ABC pointed us to unfair contracts that are apparently difficult or impossible to get out of, and highlighted strata management companies and insurance brokerage firms that are majority owned or controlled by separate billion-dollar companies, with those companies then circulating work and payments between them, often failing to disclose these arrangements to their clients, who are ultimately the ones left to foot the bill. Now, the ABC investigation alleged unethical conduct by Steadfast Group, which is the largest general insurance broker and the largest group of insurance underwriting agencies in Australasia. Steadfast CEO Robert Kelly has strongly rejected the allegations. The ABC's reporting revealed that Steadfast has a number of agreements with strata managers that apparently have the effect of channeling owners' funds back to the strata managers. The disclosure of those deals is patchy and sometimes non-existent, the ABC told us. A community in Martha Cove in Victoria was highlighted as an example. The owners at Martha Cove were reassured that their insurance commissions were being rebated to them and not being kept by their strata manager, Brighton Duggan, but they were completely unaware that their strata manager was still receiving a share of what they spend on insurance through its de facto shareholding in their insurance broker. Brighton Duggan CEO Chris Duggan admitted that the management contract provided to owners at Martha Cove was incomplete in that it failed to record some of the conflicts of interest, and said that this was an isolated administrative error. ACCC Chair Gina Cass-Gottlieb is calling for a ban on strata insurance commissions, saying that those payments are driving up costs for owners. She has also condemned undisclosed arrangements as deceptive and misleading of consumers. That's what's been happening this week. That's my summary of what I watched, what I have been reading. We are going to get into how the industry has responded to these reports. I'm just checking the temperature of these comments over here, seeing more hellos. Come on in. Petra's saying laughable if it was not so bad. Sean M is saying, even I got confused by some of the structures shown. Sean, even I got confused by some of the structures shown. And I have to tell you that I received some text messages while I was watching the show, as many of you might have received, from colleagues of mine, some legal colleagues of mine, saying, I had no idea how deep this ran and how this was working. Michael is saying Four Corners was only able to show a tiny fraction of the corrupt practices of the vast majority of the industry. And Michael provided Linton much more evidence. Yeah, I imagine that there were a lot more people who spoke to Linton and his team, spoke to Four Corners, a lot of other industry players who sent material through, who sent statements through. It's only a 45-minute segment. And we have seen how that has come out. And I'm going to say a little bit more about that when I give you my opinion, as I've promised to give you. Jeff said one of our strata managers declared in their engagement contract insurance commissions could be up to 100%. Wow, that sounds out there, Jeff. Lois saying, I wasn't sure whether to throw up or cry when I saw it. Sorry for being graphic. I have heard that from a few people, Lois, and especially those who have heard their strata manager's name named. So what are others saying publicly? What have the statements been? What have the press releases been after that was dumped on the strata industry on Monday night? What has been the response from what I keep calling our industry stakeholders? And I do apologize to Kathy Sherry, who I know hates that word, stakeholders. First of all, Strata Community Association, SCA, as we know them. In a statement released on Tuesday, CEO of SCA Australasia, Alicia Fisher, said that the SCA strongly condemns the behaviour of rogue operators and poor practices within the strata sector. The actions of a few, Alicia said, are not reflective of our broader industry. SCA is concerned about opaque and misleading practices presented in media reports, along with activities lacking transparency or not following their mandated best practice for members. SCA will continue to work with members and stakeholders across the country to implement positive change and to enhance the strata management profession. This includes the creation of their best practice disclosure guide, appointing a new independent chair of complaints and conduct, and the next step of their business practices review. SCA welcomes the strengthening of measures and protections that further professionalise strata and deliver better outcomes for consumers, and it will continue to work collaboratively with its members, with government, and with regulators. Now, importantly, the SCA is encouraging any person who has a complaint about the conduct of a strata manager to email the address complaints@strata.community to access their independent complaints management process. That's what we heard from SCA Australasia. What about Steadfast? Steadfast Group released a response to the ABC's reporting on Tuesday saying that it refutes the allegations made and is disappointed that further important information, or rather important information, was not disclosed and other information was selectively presented. Steadfast was upset that the reporting made no mention of the fact that Steadfast commissioned respected insurance expert John Trowbridge to conduct an independent review in late 2021. I am going to come back to that. John Trowbridge being a name that you will, if you tune into the podcast, you're here on Friday Live, you will be familiar with John's name, having heard from him directly here on these platforms within the last couple of years. Steadfast did ultimately agree that the media coverage raises concerns around strata industry transparency. What are the insurance brokers saying? In an article published by Insurance Business magazine, some brokers said that these strata issues have existed for a long time, and they were relieved that the ABC had exposed them. Some expressed respect for what industry veteran Robert Kelly has personally done for the wider insurance industry, but said his firm's business model of vertical integration is too open to manipulation. They've said that other firms in the strata sector have the same vertically integrated business model and are responsible for similar abuses. It just happened to be Steadfast that the ABC chose to single out for scrutiny. The Owners Corporation Network, the OCN, Karen Stiles says we are witnessing an alarming trend in strata management practices that are not only unethical but potentially unlawful. And it's time for the government to step in and ensure that there is a robust framework protecting consumers who are currently at a disadvantage. The lack of transparency and accountability, says Karen, in the current system has left many of us vulnerable. We need a thorough inquiry that not only highlights these issues, but also leads to substantial reforms. The Australian College of Strata Lawyers, the ACSL, has released a statement. The college agrees that all state and territory governments must take action to address the behaviour of the bad actors. What is missing, says the college, crucially, is an independent, empowered and properly resourced enforcement agency in every state and territory. In essence, there is no strata cop on the beat in any Australian jurisdiction, and there needs to be. In the ACSL's view, it should not fall to strata owners to identify, to investigate, and to ultimately prosecute breaches of strata law by their strata managers. The absence of an effective enforcement agency is one of the most significant reasons that the behaviours reported on by the ABC have become prevalent. Josephine saying, not only steadfast, oh dear. Layla saying, agreed. Michael saying, I've been involved in strata for 40 years, and yes, it's always been corrupt, but it got much more sophisticated over the past few years. Michael, I've been involved for 20 years, and I have seen the sophistication as well. I'm going to say a little bit more about that shortly. Sean says, if an octopus industry player commissions an independent review, is it considered as such in a forest? Hey, Wenna, joining us. Jeff saying that he's lodged an ethics complaint with SCA and he will let us know how that goes. Thanks, Jeff. Nina is here, I believe, because we're getting hellos there for Nina. Hey, Dave. Nice to see you. Megan saying, is it $250 to lodge a complaint with SCA? I think it was, Megan, but that fee has now been waived. Sean's asking, why are all SCA and SCA New South Wales announcements coming from the secretariats, none from the board or the board members? I recall, Sean, a few weeks ago, SCA New South Wales announced that the national CEO, Alicia Fisher, was taking over that CEO role for New South Wales, at least, as well. We did have a little chat about that on live, and we were wondering whether that was happening across all state chapters or just New South Wales. That's possibly the reason why these statements are coming out of national. And I do think the statement, at least that I was quoting from earlier, was a statement directly from SCA National. Sean O is saying SCA cancelled a PSS, Professional Standards Scheme, webinar on Wednesday afternoon. Maureen's telling us she's had an experience of 2 different strata management companies, one great, the other terrible. And I can see you there, Nina Howe. Lovely to have you join us. All right. Not finished yet with our roundup of what others have been talking about today and what the response has been on the ground. Earlier this week, I posted here on the page and drew attention to an article on LinkedIn posted by David Wellman of Wellman Strata. And you'll see David is part of the Four Corners interview. David's article is titled Why I Chose to Speak Out on Four Corners. And I think if you hadn't gone and haven't been to read that article, it is one of the articles, one of the many that's out there that is well worth reading. I'll give you a few quotes from it. David said, I chose to speak out not against the industry I've dedicated 25 years to, but in support of it. Because I know that the vast majority of us out there are doing the right thing, working with our clients' best interest in mind, first and foremost, in a job that is exceptionally complex, challenging, and usually thankless. To say, says David, that I'm disappointed with the final Four Corners story would be an understatement. My 3 to 4 hour interview was whittled down to just a few grabs, which of course I knew was a possibility. I also knew that I was part of a broader story over which I would have no visibility until it aired. That said, says David, I did have faith that the story would focus on the current stronghold Steadfast has over our industry and would bring to light the struggles that our sector has faced as a result. Ultimately, I feel the Four Corners story took a small number of players and used them to paint the whole industry as unethical and untrustworthy in a sensationalist manner. And I do consider it was a missed opportunity to explore some of the real issues at play, leaving us once again portrayed as the bad guys, rather than explaining how we ended up in this position in the first place. On this, says David, I want to take an opportunity to explain my position more thoroughly and some of what was discussed in that 3.5 hour interview that did not make it to air. So further down here on our Facebook page, there is a link to David Wellman's full article on his LinkedIn profile, well worth going and having a read of. 10 top consumer groups are now demanding a federal inquiry. A coalition of 10 leading consumer and strata advocacy associations has called for a national public inquiry into the strata management industry, claiming that systemic harmful practices within the industry are compromising consumer rights and community expectations. Federal Treasurer Jim Chalmers has been urged to initiate a government-directed inquiry led by the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission or the Productivity Commission. And I just saw today, I think it might have been in a LinkedIn post, Jimmy Thompson, Flat Chat, has interviewed ABC reporter Linton Besser on his podcast. Definitely go and check that one out. I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. I've had my head in other things today, but it's sounding like that chat directly with Linton will be a good one to tune into. Access to that available through Jimmy Thompson's Flat Chat website. Now, please tell me if I am wrong, but as far as I am aware, we have not heard anything from state or territory governments. We haven't heard from the Office of the New South Wales Strata Commissioner. We haven't heard from Victoria, New South Wales and Victoria being the home states of what ABC reported as the most troubled communities. Let me know if I've missed it. I find it a little bit odd. Luke is saying it is disappointing that the Four Corners article was not very well balanced. Sean M saying, I think an inquiry of some sort to create a national framework is necessary. Bill and Ben saying, is this where I make a Dumb and Dumber joke? SCA are self-appointed peak body who represent agents, and fair trading is the government department who are the window dressing to create the facade of public confidence in strata. Chris is saying it's essential we have a royal commission into strata management practices. Sean O saying David Wellman's article was very fair, I thought. And Sean M saying New South Wales board is still in place. Yep, take your point there, Sean. All right, Michael B is on a roll here today. I'm not going to be able to read all of those comments, Michael, but I am looking forward to coming back around and seeing those that I have missed. Like some of you, yes, I did think that the reporting had an element of sensationalism. 30 seconds or so of stock footage of a Lamborghini racing through the streets did, in my view, take away from some of the harder hitting aspects of the investigation, as did referring to the strata industry as a whole partying on a super yacht. However, if a little bit of sizzle is what's necessary to bring attention to an incredibly important cause, then I am all for it. Some of you may be unsurprised by that. The footage of the Strata meetings that were shown, both the in-person and the online meetings, was sadly all too familiar to me. I have attended meetings like that, as I know some of you have too. Behavior like that is rare. It is the exception. It is not the rule, but it does happen and it should not be happening. Yes, this investigation, this discussion is and should primarily be about conflicted remuneration and insurance arrangements because that rot appears to run deep. But Pandora's box has been opened and we all have to live with that. It is not a bad thing that these discussions lead into a broader examination of Strata, which is, as we all know, as we say, as we subscribe to, Strata is the fourth layer of government here in this country. It has to be up to scratch. I was very pleased to see Victorian owners and Victorian owners corporations and communities get some attention in this reporting. There are huge problems down there that nobody seems to be paying any attention to. Many of you tuning in, who tune in regularly, who are members of my online community, you are from Victoria. I know how badly you need help. I am regularly asked, Amanda, who is you? Who's you down in Victoria? Who is the Strata lawyer who is providing the kind of education that you provide down in Victoria? I know that you need help. I hope that there will be a proper response from your state government. As you've heard some of these stakeholders say, the insurance brokers were saying it publicly, we know about this. We've all known about this for some time. We know about these practices. I hear that from my colleagues, from other Strata lawyers, other Strata managers as well. If we've all known about this for some time, what's changed now? Why is this all coming out now? And I think it was Michael posted a comment earlier. It was hitting the nail on the head. There is increasing sophistication. Yes, there's increasing sophistication of Strata management companies and Strata service providers, but Strata owners as well. Strata owners are no longer second-class citizens. We are spending multiple millions of dollars on our properties. We are lawyers. We are judges. We are doctors, accountants, actuaries. Strata owners are highly skilled, trained professionals. They can read a financial statement. They can perform an ASIC search. As owners are getting more savvy, Strata management companies are also getting a bit more clever. They too are increasing their commercial nous. They are getting advice from lawyers who understand how Strata works. And on this point, I think David Willman explained these complex, a few of you have said it today, Linton Bess has said it, complex, confusing arrangements. David explained it pretty well in the small part of his interview that went to air. David said that he was made an offer whereby he would provide exclusivity over his insurance portfolio, and in return, he would receive a large cash injection into his business. And for a business like his, that large cash injection was anywhere between $500,000 to about $800,000. I have heard larger numbers have been offered to other businesses. Part of the sales pitch, the ABC report went on to tell us, is the ability to hide the income, to allow you to bypass your disclosure obligations, to allow you to go to the client and say, I'm the good guy. I'm not taking insurance commissions. But as David said, in actual fact, you are. It's hidden. This is not the first time I've heard a Strata manager explain those arrangements in that way. I read on LinkedIn this week, Kelly Roberts from TCM Strata. She said the words, the real money is being made behind closed doors. That is exactly what has been happening. Someone came up with that idea, and someone, or just many someones, gave the legal advice that said it's all okay. It is not okay, and the lawyers who said that it is should be taking a good, hard look at themselves. There is a difference between something being legal and it's being ethical or moral. That is the line that true professionals walk every day and hope not to cross. The lawyers have a case to answer here as well. Chris Conway's in the comments here telling me, happy to name names, just don't do it here on the page. Chris, repeating my rules of the game that I announced at the top of this chat. Nina Howell saying, I would like SCA to demand all companies who've been part of JVs, joint ventures, to be made to voluntarily admit it to their industry colleagues for transparency. My questionnaire that I have, Nina, which I am going to share with everybody very soon, may lead to that kind of admission. Jeff saying it's called financial engineering. It might be legal, but is it ethical? Scrolling back up for anything I may have missed there, Paul Johnson, knowing about an issue but saying nothing about it says something about how it bites all of us in the end. Yep. And, I'm thrilled that Nina Howell is here today because if you remember back in March, that first, back then, was it a 7:30 report? Nina was the whistleblower. To my memory, the original whistleblower. And she was the one who was brave enough to stand up and say, this is wrong, and I'm going to speak out about it at extreme expense, I am sure, to Nina's own personal well-being. Ready Strata Management is saying, let me go and polish my Lamborghini. Oh, sorry, my Toyota. Not all Strata managers. We're with you. Ready Strata Management. Daryl saying that would be the exception, not the norm. Over the last 3 years, I've had 0 owners corporations wanting to chair their own meetings. Oh, so you must be responding to someone else there in the comments, Daryl. Good to see you. Jeff saying insurance brokers knew about the issues, but did they report it? Okay. Acknowledging some internal discussions happening there that I'm not going to wade into right now. I am certainly hearing from strata managers that the bad behavior is not all one way. There are, shock of all shocks, badly behaved committees and committee members. More than one strata manager and owners too, by the way, have wanted to point that out to me this week and ask, when is that investigation going to happen? An investigation into committee member conduct or misconduct. I hear you. I get it. I act for owners every day who are struggling with dysfunctional, non-compliant, appallingly behaved committees. In my experience, poor committee behavior or decision making is often, not always, but often a symptom of poor strata management. A strata manager who does not lay down the law because they don't know it, or improperly they take sides and get too personally involved in community gripes, can be a big problem. But I also acknowledge the many very experienced, professional, skilled, very good, in my opinion, strata managers. You also experience poor committee behavior and struggle with that, and it is no fault of yours. It is because we are all human and we all have our issues. There are going to be difficult personalities, and conflict will always be high when we are working together with people in and about their homes. What I predict we may start to see as strata managers necessarily become more confident in their roles is that they will refuse to work with these toxic communities or toxic people. As we've heard Michael Tees on the podcast recently encourage them to do, they'll start firing these clients. And yes, this might leave some dysfunctional communities with no strata manager willing to work with them. Compulsory appointment might end up being the answer for those communities. And as that system currently stands, that's something of a terrifying answer. I do want to address the position of Steadfast in all of this, and it's lamenting that Four Corners did not pay attention to the work that John Trowbridge was engaged to do since 2021. I think in insisting that we refer back to John Trowbridge's reporting and his recommendations, I think it misses the point. Steadfast misses the point and seems to still have its head in the sand. John Trowbridge was engaged because, quite obviously, Steadfast could see the writing on the wall. It was a protective step. Steadfast was trying to get ahead of the game, but it didn't work. It didn't change anything. It didn't change anything because the biggest recommendation coming out of John Trowbridge's work was disclosure. Disclosure will cure these problems, but disclosure alone never was and will not change anything. My colleague, Dr. Nicole Johnston, said to me today, we need to cut the head off the snake, not tread on its tail. Disclosure, says Dr. Nicole, is treading on the tail. Who has the ability to cut the head off the snake? Our lawmakers do. A key problem that has been involved in most of these practices, or a key problem with most of these practices, is that they are not necessarily black and white illegal. That needs to change. And the legislation that was introduced to New South Wales Parliament last month, supposedly to address these poor practices, does not change that. All it does is call for more what? Disclosure. In relation to SCA directing people to their complaints process, I am aware of a lot owner who lodged a complaint about a member of SCA in about February 2024. That was pre-ABC reporting. As of the end of August 2024, that complaint still has not been processed. The complainant got an email from SCA National advising that because of the transition of responsibilities from New South Wales to the National Professional Standards and Membership Board advisory group, there'd been some delays in the process. This owner, this complainant, has been told to continue to wait until the end of September for the review of their complaint application. The review of their complaint application, not the determination of their complaint. I say that that is not good enough to be directing owners to make complaints to SCA and then to be keeping them waiting for 7 months or more. The Australian College of Strata Lawyers statement about there being no strata cop on the beat resonates with my own experience, and I know resonates with the experience of many of you who are tuning in. Just last week, a member of our online community posted in our member forum about the experience of making a complaint about a strata manager's contract, their agency agreement that was apparently in place but had never been approved at a general meeting. There was no general meeting resolution for this strata manager to have a 3-year contract in place. Instead, the contract was signed by the committee and apparently approved by the committee only. The contract had been accepted by the strata manager as legal. Now, this owner lodged a complaint with the property services team at New South Wales Fair Trading. The owner did get a result. The team found that the complaint was made out. The contract was never legally entered into. Probably not hard to make that one out. The owner was told by Fair Trading Property Services team that appropriate compliance action has been taken in line with our policy and procedures. That was in a letter that the owner received. What does that mean? Who knows? Fair Trading goes on to tell the owner that our regulatory role does not impact on your next steps and is separate to your desired outcome. As an owner, you may wish to submit a motion to be included in the upcoming general meeting agenda for the Owners Corporation to consider whether it wishes to terminate the strata manager. So fair trading left it to that owner to deal with what it had clearly found was an illegal contract, a non-existent contract, possibly in the eyes of the law. And what could that owner do but requisition a motion for her asking, begging for her owner's corporation to do something about that. Her other option is to go and engage a strata lawyer and spend tens, possibly, of thousands of dollars on legal advice. That is not good enough. So what now? What does all of this mean? I do get asked for my recommendations. Amanda, what can we do? What steps can we take? I am going to get into that, and I am going to share the resource that I have promised for you today. Before I do that, I am, with crossed fingers, going to head over again into those comments and pick up what I can. Maureen saying strata manager and committee work together for their own benefit, not for the benefit of the owner's corporation. I think that has been some people's experience. Leonie saying agree, Amanda. Some strata managers take sides. Michael saying people need to grasp the concept of fiduciary duty and conflict of interest, among other fundamental principles, to really understand what's going on. Yeah, and they're not simple concepts, Michael, not at all. Layla saying that's ridiculous. It really does leave a bad taste. I think that's in relation to how the regulator responded to that particular complaint. Bill and Ben saying sad story of the failure of the system. Leonie saying, where do you go? I'm with you, Leonie. NCAT, half the members don't know Strata, the others don't read the material until that day and pass the buck on to a different member, and then most are on the side of the Strata manager. Yeah. Sean telling me I'm brave, ducking into the comments. I salute you. I suspect you can see more than I can at the moment, Sean. So I am often asked, Amanda, who do you recommend as a good strata manager? If we hear about these cowboys, and I saw Sean's comment on LinkedIn earlier this week where he said cowboys and then he said, and cowgirls. Look, I'm going to step out here and say cowgirls. If someone can point me to the girls who are involved in these practices, let me know. What we seem to hear about publicly are the boys. I am loath to make those kinds of recommendations for good strata management companies. And those of you who have asked will know that generally I won't do it. I have limited direct experience of being the client of a strata management company. I think I've experienced maybe 3 different management companies in my career as a strata property owner. I don't know all of the internal workings of all strata management businesses, no more than you do. I am not a strata manager. I don't have some secret insight into strata management companies. But that is why it is so important to ask questions. And that is what I do. And that is what I encourage you to do. Whether it is questions of your current manager, because you're concerned about what you've seen in this week's media and you're not sure where they stand, what they might be involved in, or questions of prospective managers you're interviewing to wonder whether or not you should give them the job to differentiate them from each other. While I can't give you recommendations for strata managers, what I can help you with, I believe, is the types of questions that you can be asking. And to the extent you are a strata manager, the types of questions that you might want to get on the front foot with your clients and start answering without being asked to. I think after sitting with this for a week, we can all get a feeling to understand, know what it is that your clients might be worried about, what owners might be worried about, what kind of information they might want to know about your company. Entirely up to you whether you give that information or not. That might help them feel more comfortable or might help them make a decision that they're not the ones for you and you're not the ones for them. So that is what I have done for you today. I do have a resource for you to take action on, a list of 20 questions That, I suggest, you can ask your strata manager right now. I am going to share this list on the screen. We will talk through every question. We are going to run a little bit later than our usual 5 p.m. wrap. I also have a link for you to get your own copy of these 20 questions. That link is yourstrataproperty.com.au/questions. It is going into the comments here on Facebook. We will get it over to LinkedIn and to YouTube as well. When you follow that link, I only ask in return for your email address. If that is too much to give, then I am sharing these questions here on the screen very shortly. I will read each of them out. You will have this recording available on the platform that you are currently watching. You can listen back, you can play it back, and you can pick up the questions. I'm going to move ahead with sharing my screen here with you for your 20 questions. You can absolutely grab your own copy of this by following the link, and you can have it there on your screen as well. As soon as you pop in your details, you'll be directed to a page where you can download it straight away. You don't need access to your inbox to be able to grab it. 20 questions here. I have these are not all the questions. There's nothing golden about these questions. It's not these are the only questions that you should be asking, or if you're strata managers, you should be thinking about answering. These questions you'll see go to the practices that we have seen highlighted in the recent media reporting. But there are, if you're a building particularly looking for new strata management, there are going to be questions that you will have that are specific to your building that you should absolutely be asking potential strata managers. Sean's telling me that there's an error. If anyone else is getting an error, let me know. Sean O, that is. Okay. Bill and Ben is giving me the Y ends, and it's not a what's the word? Not a quiz, and there is no necessarily correct answer. And it's not the case that if you get lots of Y's, you've passed, and lots of N's, you haven't. You'll see that the questions are framed in different ways. The idea is for owners to have more of an understanding. If managers are willing to answer these questions, entirely up to them, more of an understanding of how their strata manager operates so that they can make a more informed decision. Special shout out to the small group of professionals who I did send drafts of this questionnaire to, seeking their feedback, including strata managers. Thank you to Natalie Fitzgerald. Thank you to Rena Van Alst. Thank you to Dr. Nicole Johnston. Short notice, as this week has held a lot that's happened on short notice, but I have been able, with their assistance, to help put this together for you. All right, let's have a look. Hopefully you've got your copy of it by now, or you can see what I have here on this screen, 20 questions to ask your strata manager. These are questions that you can ask your current strata manager or one you're considering engaging to better understand their business practices and help make a more informed decision when it comes to the management of your incredibly important asset. Ask your strata manager, will you consider or do you have an alternative remuneration model that excludes your receipt of insurance commissions and or broker fees? Many management companies do. We've heard from many managers since this reporting about about insurance commissions and unfair practices, linking the receipt of insurance commissions and broker fees to unfair practices. We've seen many management companies come out and say, we don't accept remuneration through commissions. We don't receive broker fees. There are many companies who leave it up to the building to decide whether or not they want to subsidize their management fee with a commission or not. Asking the question, is this possible with your business, is an important one. Do you offer fixed fee contracts so that the management fee we agree to pay you is inclusive of all services and there are no additional fees? We have seen this shift in legal services, the debate about billable hours and whether billable hours are fair, whether they are ethical. That debate has raged in legal services for a long time, and it has resulted in a lot more lawyers offering fixed fee services. I see that happening in strata management businesses as well. I've seen a lot of posts this week around Schedule B, it's called in New South Wales, charges. So that's your additional services fees, work done at hourly rates, work that falls outside of the agreed management fee. I regularly see financial statements where the agreed management fee is $20,000 and the additional services fee is another $20,000. That comes as a surprise to owners. When they sign up to that management agreement, they don't realize just how large that Schedule B or those additional services fees are going to be. But I do know that there are management companies out there that in response to that concern or that complaint, are offering fixed fee, all-inclusive contracts so that that number that you see on the front page of the agency agreement is all that you're going to pay to your strata manager. That is a business decision for strata managers to make. There's no right or wrong, in my view, about that. I offer fixed fee services in my legal practice. I also work on billable hours in my legal practice. I certainly always provide an estimate of legal costs to my clients. I'm required by law to do that. There's no right way. What's important is that you as the client, as the owners, as the building, understand how you're being charged, and that is being made clear to you. So asking this kind of question, getting that yes or no, can then lead into a further conversation with your strata manager about how their charging is structured. Question number 3, you can see on the page there, will you allow us to make our own insurance arrangements? You might not need or want your strata manager to be placing your insurance policies. We heard through the Four Corners reporting that owners who went out and sought other quotes from different insurers were actually able to get cheaper quotes. Is that something that your strata manager is happy for you to do? Are you willing to provide us with the names of all insurance brokers you work with? My understanding, my experience is that strata managers work with a range of different insurance brokers. That is connected to question number 5 there. Will you allow us to appoint an insurance broker of our choosing? I understand from having a chat with Rena Van Als that some strata managers are only authorized to represent particular insurers or particular brokers, and it's not necessarily possible for strata managers to work with a broker of your choosing. Asking that question, and even when the answer is no, asking the follow-up, why is that the case? And getting an understanding of how that authorized representative relationship works in strata is going to be really helpful. It's something that Rena a couple of times now has needed to explain to me how that works. And if I hadn't asked the question, then I wouldn't have received the information and gained that understanding. Moving on to question 6, do you use insurance brokers that are part of the Steadfast Group broker network? I think that's an important question. I think that's a question that many owners will be wondering. I know when I finished watching the Four Corners report, I thought, maybe I might just check in on that. Again, if the answer is yes, it doesn't mean that your strata manager is unethical or immoral or unprofessional, but it does lead into further questions about how they might be being remunerated. And if that is a concern for your building, if your strata manager doesn't want to answer that question or is defensive about that, then that may lead to further decisions being made down the line to ask if that arrangement can be changed, to make a different contract decision when the time comes. Question 7, are you involved in any commercial arrangement with the Steadfast Group or any other insurance broker that results in you or any third-party entity connected with or related to you receiving any payment when or because a strata scheme places their insurance? This is my way of making sense of the practice that David Wellman explained to Four Corners is happening, and put it into words that you can then put to your strata manager. If they want to answer that question, they can. If they don't want to answer that question, that might tell you something too. Are you a parent company of, a subsidiary of, or in any way related to or connected to any other person or entity that provides services to strata schemes, including but not limited to building management and caretaking services, property repair and maintenance services, fire protection services, insurance and brokerage services, legal advice services. This is attempting to get to the bottom of who's in bed with who. And we've heard that there's a lot of that going on in our strata space. If that's happening, you probably want to know about it. This is where potential conflicts of interest can arise. Not necessarily, but there is the potential for conflict. And there is certainly the perception of conflict if a strata management company is connected with, related to these entities. Seeing George asking, where do I get to print the 20 questions? Anyone who's just tuning in and wants a copy of these, yourstrataproperty.com.au/questions. We might pop that into the comments again here, team, if you don't mind. Following on from question 8, if the answer to question 8 is yes, the strata management company is connected, related to these other service providers, are you willing, you can ask the strata manager, to disclose the nature of those connections, including the names of the people and companies you're connected to, how you are connected, and what those other services are? I would be surprised if the answer to that question was no. I know many companies that do have these connections are already making these disclosures, whether they're legally required to or not. You'll see in some of these questions, I think this is the first of them, where if a certain answer is, yes, we do have these relationships, then the follow-up question is, are you willing to disclose those? I want to acknowledge the conversation that I was having with Dr. Nicole Johnston, and she gave us that beautiful metaphor about the snake. We need to cut off the head of the snake and not tread on the tail. Disclosure and more disclosure is simply treading on the tail. I agree that more disclosure is not the answer. But for now, we are stuck with the legal regime that we are stuck with. And if these questions prompt a strata manager to give you more information or to more clearly point out, rather than in the 9-point font at the back of the agency agreement or in the notes attached to the general meeting agenda, if these questions prompt this conversation in more of a natural human way rather than legalese, for you to have this conversation with your strata manager, although they are going to more disclosure, I think that is going to be helpful and better than not asking at all. Question 10, do you agree to send us a monthly invoice for any management fees that fall outside of our agreed or fixed services fee, and await our approval of that invoice before you draw down on the trust account to pay yourself from our funds? I'm going to pause there because this is a big deal. And I didn't realize how much this was happening. I legally cannot draw down on funds I hold in my trust account on behalf of my legal practice clients to pay my bill unless I have their consent. I have a practice where I'll send a bill. If I have money in my trust account, I will wait 7 business days and I will invite my client to give me any objection to that bill within 7 business days, and tell them if I don't have an objection to that bill within 7 business days, I will draw down and pay myself from the funds I hold in my trust account. I hear that strata managers for both agreed services and additional services. Agreed services I kind of understand because that's a fee you've already agreed, but additional services, strata managers just paying themselves each month for their additional services. And that is how we get to an AGM when we're finally looking at the financials and the budget for the next year. And owners saying, how did we end up paying our strata manager 50 grand when 25 grand was the contract fee? And then it becomes clear that the strata managers agreed in additional services have been that additional 25 grand and nobody's known about it because no invoices were ever issued. No payments were approved. No itemization of that work has happened. Ask this question and ask if your strata manager will do that. Some strata managers I know absolutely already do that. Some just don't because they don't have to. And if they don't have to, they're not creating more work for themselves. Question 11, In your role as a strata manager, do you receive payments or other benefits from any other person or entity, whether or not that person or entity is connected with or related to you? Benefits include, but are not limited to, gifts and gift vouchers with a value over $60 that comes from the New South Wales legislation. Free or subsidised tickets to events, whether or not they are strata industry events. Free or subsidised meals, travel or holidays. Free or subsidised training or education. It is the law in New South Wales that some of this does need to be disclosed. This is a reminder for strata managers about that. And if you're not in New South Wales and you don't have this kind of legislation, then this is probably going to be helpful for you to be asking your strata manager, and strata managers in those other jurisdictions. Give this information. Give this information to your clients or your prospective clients. I don't know why you wouldn't. If your answer to 11 is yes, are you willing to disclose each of those payments and benefits to us on request and at least on an annual basis? Question 13, do you receive referral fees, also known as kickbacks, from any supplier of strata services? We have heard, I think it was most clearly set out in some of the online, at least as I was reading, online ABC News reports, that some strata management companies have 38 different revenue streams, all coming from taking a cut from the contract prices for other service providers. If you sign a contract with this energy provider, you get 2% of the value of that contract. If you sign if you use this particular quantity surveyor, you get X percent from their contract. That needs to be disclosed. I think most strata management companies in New South Wales are disclosing that. I have seen some agency agreements that have that very long list of referral fees that they receive. This is to Dr. Nicole Johnston's point. We already have a lot of this disclosure. It's not changing anything. It's a matter for the strata manager and the building to decide whether, even with these referral fees, they are comfortable, that those relationships, that those arrangements should remain in place, and that the manager is not going to be conflicted in their advice, in their decision-making, in the contractors that they choose to recommend. I am not sure, if I put my legal hat on, how you can say that you are not conflicted, or at least there is not the perception of a conflict when you are receiving a referral fee, a kickback from a service provider. Disclosing it doesn't change that. But these questions go to reminding people, strata managers, of these obligations. Jeff saying they may not answer, but it's fun to ask. Gordon saying, I had no idea Steadfast was so massive until the other night, but apparently neither did the ACCC, who should have known. Thanks for reminding me of that, Gordon. In chatting to some strata managers when I was getting their input on these draft questions, one of them said to me, we're trying to find alternatives. We're trying to find alternatives to Steadfast, and we're struggling because of some of the very large buildings we have, the large policies that need to be written. We're struggling to find where else to go. So it's tough. It is tough. And I've had some other strata managers say to me, Amanda, when you ask these questions, it seems like these practices are really widespread, and that everyone's taking kickbacks and referral fees, and everyone's involved in these vertically integrated arrangements where they're getting a cut of the insurance. That's not the case. Most of us are not. I have to say, I'm getting it from both sides, guys. And that's where I said earlier, I do feel the need to share my opinion and what I'm hearing, because I am in this privileged position where if I put the questions out there, I do thank you for sharing with me your answers. But some of you tell me that it's widespread and Steadfast is huge and you're finding it difficult to find other places to place your policy. And some of you are telling me that this is just what happens with the big boys. And for most of us, we're not the big boys and we're not involved in these practices. Sharing it like I hear it. If you are receiving those referral fees, are you willing to disclose them? That's question 14. Question 15, do you provide free advice or free services to property developers? Might be a little bit controversial, this question, but it could be a way to cut through this issue of whether if a developer is going to gift, that was the word that was used when talking about this Victorian management company on Four Corners. If a developer is going to gift a strata management contract to a strata manager, perhaps a yes answer to this question would indicate to you that that manager may not be wholly independent and may not be always acting in the best interests of the owner's corporation. I don't see why a manager would provide a developer with free advice or free services. I know it happens. Natalie Fitzgerald in particular has been talking about it for a long time. I can see your comment there now, Natalie. Love the property developer question, so important. It happens, and as we saw in the reporting and we see in real life, it does mean in some situations the strata manager is not there as the independent or not even independent, as the advocate for their client, the owner's corporation, when dealing with building defects, because they're keeping that developer happy. They provided all that free advice and free services before the strata plan came off. Then they've got the contract in return for that. Surely it's much cleaner charging for your time, strata managers. Question 16, are the terms of your standard agency agreement negotiable? I thought this was an important one. I heard from some of you, strata managers, that if you are in New South Wales, part of the professional standards scheme, you may be restricted when it comes to amending the standard agency agreement. That concerns me. That as a business owner, I would not be happy to be restricted in that way when it comes to the terms of my engagement. I'm certainly not restricted when it comes to my legal cost agreements. There are things that absolutely have to be in there for the benefit of the client, for the consumer disclosure. But otherwise, I can negotiate the terms of my cost agreement with my client. Your professional indemnity insurers as well, I've heard from strata managers, may say something about the terms of your agency agreement and if those terms were going to change. But that question is there for owners to raise with their agents. If your agent is not using an SCA standard form contract, maybe they're using the REI template contract, or they've developed their own contract with some legal advice, they may happily be able to say yes to that. Sean M saying, my understanding is SCA provides a standard agreement, but I wasn't aware it was non-negotiable. I'm not completely aware of that either, Sean. I don't know if that's a fact, but it was raised by one of the strata managers I ran this question past. Question number 17, do you agree that strata owners are legally entitled to access all of their owners' corporations' books and records, including financial records and the strata roll? If you have a strata manager who answers no to that question, you're with the wrong strata manager. Tell me I'm wrong, I think that one's pretty black and white. And a no answer to that question 17 is, in my view, a fail. One of the few questions on this list here that is a black and white fail. Do you use, or are you willing to consider using, software that allows all owners to have 24/7 access to all of their buildings, books and records? I love that. Inspired by Dr. Nicole Johnston, who tells me that building that she's involved with has this kind of open access. Why shouldn't owners be able to log in to their own books and records at any time? Obviously, password protected, and they've had their identities checked, and we know that they are owners who are logging in to see what it is that the strata manager holds for them at any particular time, and everything gets filed there. That's the working file that owners can access. Jimmy's giving me a thumbs up to question 17. Question number 19, do you agree that you will not place a motion for your own reappointment or the extension of your appointment on the agenda of our meetings unless expressly instructed to do so by the strata committee, or unless such a motion is properly requisitioned by a lot owner? This goes to one of the big complaints that I hear from owners, from committees, 3-year contracts coming to an end. We didn't realize, motion just turned up on our meeting agenda. We didn't have the opportunity to go and seek alternate quotes. There's certainly a legal obligation in New South Wales that at least 3 months before the expiry of the manager's agency agreement, the owners are informed that the expiry is coming up, and that time should be used seeking alternate quotes if that's what the owners want to do. Um, Sometimes that notice is missed and that reappointment just ends up on the agenda. No strata manager, in my view, has the legal authority to place motions on a meeting agenda that are not the statutory motions, the motions that are required by law. It's even debatable whether a strata manager can do that, but I think you'll get away with it. Any motion that is not otherwise instructed to be placed on the agenda by a committee or requisitioned by a lot owner should not be put on there by a strata manager. Finally, question 20. Have you or your company ever been the respondent to tribunal proceedings in your state or territory in which the tribunal ordered the termination of your contract with the client? Even if the answer to that one is yes, the strata manager may want to explain what happened in that situation, may want to give you a copy of that decision to explain why that wasn't their fault or why that was an isolated event. But I think that's a fair question if you're interviewing strata managers to be asking them, so you understand a little bit more about what they've been through. Jeremy saying, I could see it would take more than 3 months to do a decent evaluation of potential strata managers. Yeah, so it is between 3 and 6 months. So at least 3 months, but no more than 6 months. 6 months is a great idea to require that 6 months notice. And that's the kind of thing that you could negotiate into the terms of your contract. That while the law is in New South Wales between 3 and 6 months notice, we want 6 months notice because we're going to need 6 months notice at the end of 3 years to go out and get comparable quotes to see what the market's doing, to see if we do want to change. Let me know what you think of these 20 questions that I suggest are good starting points for a conversation with your strata manager. I'm seeing Gordon, who I know is a strata manager, saying great questions, Amanda. So haven't offended, hopefully, too many strata managers. George is saying, how would you audit their answers to the 20 questions? Yeah, it's a good question, George. And I was hinting at that earlier. Some of these questions might be, yes, we do. Some of these answers might be, yes, we do take referral fees. Yes, we do use a broker that's part of the Steadfast group. It is then going to be up to you as owners to determine how you feel about that. Understanding what you've heard in this media reporting, having a conversation with your strata manager about that, saying, oh, hey, I can see you've answered yes to this question that you use a broker that's in the Steadfast group. I was watching this report on Four Corners about those practices. How do you feel about that? Where do you stand with that? Did your company receive this $500,000 just for doing nothing, just for being part of this broker network and placing your insurance with certain insurers? I'm a little bit concerned about that. It's a starting point for a conversation. And I would have thought that any strata manager who doesn't want to have that conversation is a brave strata manager if you're looking to build a business, I would think. Wenna's saying, none of the good strata managers are offended, Amanda. Most of us are already doing this anyway. Elizabeth saying, great effort, Amanda, but none of mine will respond. And if they do, we'll be charged $200 an hour as fees. I should hope most strata managers could answer this one in their 5-minute tea break. Elizabeth, pretty easy to know whether you fall into these brackets or not. Bill and Ben saying these questions are more probing than the aliens who abduct people. Okay, thank you for that, Bill and Ben. Sean is saying, what if they lie? Do you know what, Sean? In an earlier draft of this, which I don't think ever went anywhere, I might have deleted it before it went out, but now I'm going to tell you all. I had a question in here that asked the strata manager, would you agree to your answers to these questions forming part of our contract or being binding under our contract? And if any of your answers turn out to be false, do you agree that that would constitute grounds for immediate termination of your contract? Cheeky, but that's the kind of thing that you could do. If you're working with a really progressive strata manager, and we've heard it from Gordon and from Wenna, Amanda, we've got no problems with answering these questions at all. If you've got no problems answering them and you're answering them truthfully, then can your answers to these questions then form part of our contract? Have a think about that one, because that would answer the question, what if they lie? And they're not willing to form for their answers to form part of the contract. I think you have a problem. Being binding is good, says Sean. Yes. Oh, lots of yeses. Thanks, Sean. All right. So those are my suggested 20 questions. yourstrataproperty.com.au/questions to get your own copy of those. This is something that I wanted to do for you. I was pondering it throughout the week. I felt that there was something that needed to be put together that would help you fairly promptly. There's a lot more that can and should and hopefully will be done in time, but to help you fairly promptly to understand whether your strata manager is within this group of managers who might be involved in some of these practices. If they are, then to have a conversation about why that might be the case and perhaps what their future plans are. I've heard from other strata managers today saying, Amanda, yes, we are involved in these practices, but we want to change. These are the steps that we're trying to take to change that. It's going to take time. Communicate that. Communicate that with your clients. We're all humans. We all get it. None of us are perfect. None of us are running businesses that are perfect. This is a big part of the reason why I hesitate to be recommending anybody's strata management practice. I have a particular strata manager that manages my building. Are they perfect? No. I am a lawyer who provides legal services to clients. Is my business perfect? No. We're all humans. We all get that. We all understand that. But I think being upfront about that, being willing to have the conversation, to not shut it down, to be transparent, to give access to this information is the real key. If you go and grab a copy of those 20 questions through our link that we might just pop into the comments here again, team, if you're still with me, I appreciate that we've gone well over time, but I hope my team hasn't clocked off. We'll pop that link in. If you do generously give me your email address and then access a copy of those 20 questions, you will also receive an invitation to our webinar next week. Trust from Transparency webinar. So many of you, hundreds and hundreds of you registered already for next Thursday's webinar, how to get proper access to your strata records without the constant follow-ups, especially if transparency is a challenge for your community. I've had lots of ideas in the last week about template motions, about template letters that might assist you as owners to get access, to make sure that your records are being held in a way that ensures ease of access. I'm going to be giving you the opportunity to grab some of those on next Thursday's webinar. If you're not registered, do that over at yourstrataproperty.com.au/webinar. We'll get that one into the comments as well. I'll be live online, not here on Facebook. We are on Zoom webinar, which is why you really do need to register to get your access link. Register for the webinar so you get that link. You can join us on Zoom midday next Thursday, the 19th of September. We'll run until 1:30 p.m. Tuck that one away in the diary. What you should be looking for during a records inspection, how you can get your hands on all records, even if you think things are being hidden. What things can legally be withheld from inspection. We will talk about privilege. We'll also talk about that dirty word, privacy. We'll talk about why owners are losing trust in their strata managers and their committees, and some of the steps that you can take to start restoring that trust, even if you've tried before. I suggest answering some of these 20 questions, strata managers, is probably a good way to ensure, to embed, to restore, if you need to, that trust. I'd love to have you online with me again next Thursday at midday. Thank you, all of you. Well, I'm looking at those numbers, well over 100 at some points here tuning in live. And I know we get lots on the replay. Special hello to you if you're tuning in on the replay. Thank you for joining me and sticking around well past our usual time slot. I'm going to have a little relax, Spend some time with some family tonight. I hope you do the same. Please do something nice after a hard week. I probably will head back into these comments and pick up those I've missed. I apologize if you've been here and said hi and I haven't been able to acknowledge you. Have a fantastic weekend in or out of Strata. I look forward to catching up with you all again soon. Bye for now.